Well, essentially what it does is your main source of revenue for most of your athletics and clubs, for that matter, are the revenue generated from the events that they have. And so if the state's going to take a portion of that, I imagine there'll be a local tax also added eventually, just because why miss out, right? But what it does is it'll make us have to adjust our prices up in order to make sure that we continue to cover what we have to pay in sales tax, so we can meet our budgets.
So let's say theoretically you're charging $5 a ticket for a football game. Obviously, LCP can't eat the tax. You're going to have to increase. You're going to have to pass that along, right?
Yeah, we're just going to have to pass along and increase the price to make up the difference. And again, we're not going to we're not going to make change. We're not going to charge $5.04 at a game or whatever it is, or $5.21 or whatever the tax number is. So we'll just go up to the nearest round dollar to make it easier for our patrons to come in and for our ticket workers to make change quickly to get people in and out.
And I would imagine the level of your bureaucracy at the school, the amount of hours, there's going to be a lot of extra work for folks at Loyola and every school, right?
Yes, it will, and most of that work will fall upon the business office to make those numbers and to run the numbers to see what the attendance was, and then to make sure that the boxes are correct first and foremost, and then you apply the sales tax based on the number of people that came in off of your gate intake.
On an average, say you've got typical Loyola football weekend, and you've had to jack up the prices, et cetera, et cetera. Have you sat down with your people yet and figured out how many more man hours, or let's be politically correct, person hours per week that's going to take? Because that's taken away from other stuff.
Yeah, it is. Well, with football, it's football. You'll have a JV game early in the week and a varsity game later in the week. It's basketball and baseball and volleyball. Those sports that play multiple times a week. So you're talking about time that's taken away from regular school activity that our business office and our accountant will have to take into consideration.
Johnny, pardon me, when you factor all that in, given some of your smaller sports, you said like JV football where the attendance is low, it could come down to where you factor everything in, where you might have been eking out a few dollars every game, every week. Now you could be losing money.
Absolutely. And that's the concern. And I know that's got to be a concern for all the schools, especially the schools that rely solely on their gate for their budgets.
A sport like baseball, let's talk about, or JV football, one of your smaller attended sports. When you take into consideration when you take into consideration the increased state sales tax, and I'm thinking baseball specifically, and walk me through, because you know more than I do. You've got the increased tax, you've got the increased business hours, you've already got to pay the umpires. In many cases, you have to pay a stadium fee or however that works out. This is a lot worse than. It's going to be a little heavier burden than just that penny on the dollar, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and it comes down to what you said, man hours, and then the concern comes into, are they going to tell us we're going to have to start taxing our concession items that we sell, which also generate revenue for the programs? I mean, so you end up, it's going to end up where it's going to be an expense if we have to do that, because we're going to put cash registers that automatically figure the tax in our concessions, and you may make $100 on a JV basketball night in the concession, and then you have to have a worker in there doing it. Then you got to train them on how to work on it. Then you got to worry about the money. I mean, there's all kind of things that are going to go into play that are more than just, hey, let's put a penny on this dollar.
Let's go a little bit beyond athletics, and like I said, this is something that I just, the athletic portion, the athletic effect, I was thinking about that the last couple of days. But how's about beyond that? What kind, like you guys have the big style show. There's a number of other huge events, fundraisers, etc. that Loyola, that Evangel, that Bird puts on.
Correct.
And suddenly this just gets to be, pardon me, kind of a pain in the ass.
Well, yeah, it will. And I imagine that we're going to have to ask for some clarification on some of these events that have ordinarily been tax exempt, because it kind of goes into an area, if we're a 501c3, then, how does this affect us? Because now we're changing our status essentially, because we're being charged that sales tax. So, and I'm thinking about, like I was speaking with our SGA sponsor, we have a crawfish bowl coming, so if we've got to increase for the ticket prices on that, well, it means we're charging the kids extra money to come to the school crawfish boil. I mean, we're just hoping to pay for the stuff, so.
It's not going to be pretty, is it?
No, it's not. And I don't think this is the end of it either. To be honest with you,
Seriously, now extrapolate on that. Expound on that a little bit. What do you think?
I just think now that the state said it, I don't think it's going to be long before there's a local tax assessed to it as well.